Austin. Welcome to the Broken Skull Sessions. My guest today, one of the most charismatic, influential wrestlers in the history of the business. My guest today is Chris Jericho. Welcome to the show, brother.
I can't believe I'm actually allowed on set. There's snipers ready to pick me off.
This is it's great to see you.
It's great to see you, man. I appreciate the invite. It's a monumental day.
It is a monumental day. And do you remember how this show all came to be, or about how this gathering happened?
Well, I kind of do, because what happened, I owed you a phone call that went, see, here's the thing. You're one of the last guys that, you're not much of a texter. You want to pick up the phone and talk, which is great. It's the human element that we don't have a lot of now. But we always have great conversations. So when you call, I know I got to have 30 minutes to talk to Steve. It's not going to be a 3-4 minute thing. And time goes by, and it was like 2 or 3 months. It was this long period of time. I got to call Steve. So I was up one night at about 1 o'clock or 2 o'clock in the morning, had a couple cocktails.
I was too.
Me too. And speaking of which, cheers, man.
Cheers.
Right on. And we were just talking about whatever we were talking about. We had a nice hour-long conversation. And that's where we kind of talked about stuff that had happened. And I said, I'd love to come tell you the whole story live in person.
But what the detail you missed, I was laying in bed at a cocktail. The Undertaker show had aired.
Right.
And you said, hey, man, great interview.
Yeah.
On a text message. So I texted you back an emoji beer and an eagle. When I texted you back, that's what triggered the call.
Yes, you're awake.
And my wife's asleep. And I said, I got to take a call because Chris never calls me. So then we stayed up for like another hour.
Yeah.
We booked the territory.
We did.
And then we rode off in the sunset.
We solved the world's problems.
But as we were talking, I was like, man, I know you're in AEW now, but man, it'd be great if you come on the show. You said, man, I'd love to come on the show.
Right.
Let me see what I can do.
No, it blew my mind when you actually called back. Because, we're talking, drinking and stuff like that. It's like, when you're talking to band members, hey, dude, we should tour together. Yeah, let's tour together. And then you never hear it again. But when you actually text me back a couple months later and said, let's do this, my first question back was, am I allowed to? Am I allowed to appear on the WWE Network again? And you had gotten the permission that you needed to do it.
Well, it's like back when I used to work on top. When I called Vince, man, it wouldn't ring one time, and he would answer.
Yeah.
But now, he never takes my calls.
He's like me.
So I had to clear it. So I sent him a text message and said, hey, man, I'd love to have Chris Jericho on my Broken Skull Sessions. He texted back, go ahead. I'm like, make sure now. I said, you're sure it's okay? I didn't know how to emphasize the texting.
Right.
It's okay if I have Chris on the show. He goes, I think it's a great idea. So I'm glad to have you because, dude, we worked a bunch together before shows. People wonder what we do. You, me, and Bully Ray would sit around and talk about rock and roll bands and bullshit.
Yeah.
And so we've always had a really good friendship, and I've always appreciated your body of work.
No, and you were the guy that got me into podcasting. It was your idea when you were back first starting your show, and they were looking for other guys to do it, and you suggested me. And we've always had a great rapport. And I think we have a better friendship now that you're not in the business than when you were. Not that we weren't friends, but it's just like you get closer as the years goes on with the guys that you really get along with. And other guys you never really talk to again.
Yeah. But and also when you're still in the trenches, I always feel like there still is that competitive element.
Sure.
Because, you want great dance partners, but in a sense, you're talking to your competition.
Yeah.
But, dude, you've had an incredible 30-year career. And, when I look at top runs in the history of the business, you're in a conversation for one of the greatest runs of all time. Do you feel that? Do you see and sense everything you've accomplished?
I think when you look back, we just had my 30th anniversary show on AEW, and that was Tony Khan's idea. It wasn't something that I came up with, because I don't ever look at myself as like, 30 years in the business, and congratulations, Barry Horowitz, myself. But when you look at it and really think about it, like, at the risk of sounding egotistical, I don't think there's anybody that's ever going to have another career like mine ever again. Because, as we were talking earlier, when I started, it was one foot in that old school 1990s when I started. I know you started 85, 86. 89. 89, okay, great.
90 Rookie of the Year.
There you go. Congratulations. But it was different then.
Yes.
And it's different now in 2021. But I've seen all of it. And I've worked everywhere. So I know kind of that history and that side of it. And there's so much that I can remember that people just don't ever experience anymore. And they probably never will again. So I guess the answer is yes. I guess it is one of the greatest runs ever. Longevity, diversity, reinvention, evolution, all those things I've used still be, relevant to this day, to where we did change the business when we started AEW. And I take great pride in that. So there's a lot of different facets and elements and stuff that we can talk about, but I guess the answer is yes, long story short.
And that's been one of the things that you've kind of always harped on, is reinventing yourself, and you've reinvented yourself to a point now you're in AEW. How did all that come about when you left WWE? And then we'll go back later and kind of go chronologically through your career.
Yeah, it's really interesting to me because I never thought that I would really work anywhere outside of WWE in the States, for example, after being there for 19 years or so. But, I mean, there's so much to go into and talk about, but I think when the opportunity for AEW came up, there's a lot of, look at that hot guy, there's a lot of enlightened the whole scene again, but I think when AEW was about to start, and Tony Khan had this idea. Now, you've been around longer than I have, but you hear this all the time. Oh, there's going to be a new promotion. There's a guy who's got money. Whatever. You hear it all the time, right? So when I started talking to him, I started realizing that there's something different here about this opportunity to start a new company. And a company that could be a very big national, worldwide company, for example. And what you need for that is you need three things. You need finances and passion. That's one. You need a television contract, and you need talent. You need about 4 to 6 guys you can build a territory around. And talking to Tony, he had the finances, he had the passion. Then when we started kind of sniffing around, we realized there's a group of guys whose contracts were all coming up at the same time. Cody Rhodes, Kenny Omega, Young Bucks, Chris Jericho, Hangman Page. Guess what? There's your 6 guys right there. You can start a company on that. 6 legit guys you can build around. And Jericho's got the name value. And these other guys, to an extent, but no one had really ever heard of the Young Bucks in the mainstream, or Kenny, or Hangman. So when you see these guys, you go, where have these guys been? Right? So
they're really good.
They're really good. And they've never been on national TV here, in this country. So all 3 of those factors kind of came together in this perfect storm to where, we really have a chance to really do something here. And the contract with TNT was big, because at first I think we were thinking about maybe Showtime or HBO or something, like Netflix, all these different ideas. But you have to have network TV to get off the ground. And TNT provided that. So it was just kind of this perfect storm to where, we had this really amazing opportunity that probably will never happen again, to start this company that really had a chance to make it big right out of the gate.
And I've heard you talk in the past. I mean, WCW was around, NWA before, but in your career, during your lifetime, there hadn't been another company formed.
No.
And so...
No, there hadn't. I think when Vince bought WWE back in 2000, 2001, whatever it was, I didn't think there'd ever be another national promotion again that really could, like I said, could really, and I never want to say competition, because we're not competition. Obviously, by proxy, we've been thrown into that, but we're worried about our own stuff and about doing things differently, and doing things a different way to draw a fan base, to create more of, the choices that we had in WCW and WWE during the Monday Night Wars. We haven't had those choices for a while, and now we do, and I think that's why people have latched onto it.
So, as an established commodity, Chris Jericho, coming from all of your past, going into AEW, what was your mindset going into this? Because, you're the name, you're the guy.
Yeah.
There's other talent. But what was the pressure, and what was your mindset?
There was a lot of pressure, because if you think about it, at this point in time, Kenny Omega, and there was a huge spike in business for New Japan, not just in Tokyo, where I think we sold an extra 50,000 tickets for the Dome, but on the buy rates and the subscriptions to their New Japan World. It went up 300%. And that was the genesis for Tony Khan to go, there is room for another wrestling company in North America. We've seen this. It's Jericho and Omega, right? And the reason for that is Jericho is the guy that people knew. And I can be the bridge to take people from WWE to New Japan to see Jericho, and who's this Omega? He's great. And then they see all the other guys that were on the show. Same concept with AEW. Get Jericho on the show. Now people know who he is. Let's watch it. And to an extent, Jim Ross as well. We're the 2 worldwide names that people came to see. And then when they see us, oh my gosh, there's this whole crop of amazing talent. So it was a big deal. It was a big risk too, though, Steve. Like to me, I thought, this could be the hugest thing I've ever done, but what if it doesn't work? There's always that little element of what if it doesn't work. Now, I didn't think that much, but there's always this little worm. But I knew what I would be if I went back to WWE. I knew what would happen. I knew the first thing I did when I went back is I would have to put somebody on the list. In 2020 or 2019, the list was from 2016. It felt like, I'm going to just go play, freaking Back in Black for the rest of my life, even though I have 15 albums since.
Right.
And this is the big one. When I had this big program with Kevin Owens in 2016, which, in my opinion, was one of the best stories, if not the best story for that year. And we get to WrestleMania. It changed from Kevin and Jericho to Brock and Goldberg, and great, no problem. But when Kevin and Jericho went from the main event proposed to the second match of the show, I thought to myself, this is where I'll be for in my opinion, for the rest of my time in WWE, the second match guy. And in my mind, I wasn't a second match guy. So that's kind of the reason why I kind of went to New Japan, and suddenly I'm headlining the Tokyo Dome 3 years in a row. And then when the opportunity for AEW came up, I said, I want to continue to do this. I like being the guy, which I'd never been really before. And that kind of carried over in AEW, and it became a big success. First couple months was specifically on my shoulders, and then suddenly all the other guys came in, and now we're one big, team. But at first, it was on my back. It was my responsibility to carry this company to the promised land, so to speak. That's the way I felt. I felt a real big responsibility for that.
Did you go around preaching to guys or saying, hey, man, you need to do this, or do you lead by example?
I led by example. Not to interrupt you, sorry, but what I did, and somebody reminded me about this the other day, because we had what a talented roster AEW has, but they're guys that had never been on live TV, right?
Right.
That's a whole different world. Where's the hard camera? Where's the Jackie Crockett on the side? You find what's the crowd? So, but also, too, I wanted to let the guys know and the girls know that this was a really big deal. And this doesn't happen every day. And our first show was in Las Vegas at the MGM Grand. We sold it out. Never seen so many people hanging from the rafters.
Usually don't sell out Vegas, as you know, right?
Yeah.
It's a hard town.
Right. It's a hard town. But they've always been great to us, and MGM was great to us. And I just had a team meeting with the roster. I said, listen, I want you guys to remember this moment, because this is a historical moment in the business. No matter what happens, this is the first time in 20 years that there's an actual company, like you said, that can sell out the MGM Grand in Vegas. It's going to do 150,000 buys on pay-per-view with a television deal waiting in the wings. Don't take this for granted, because it doesn't happen every day, and it'll probably never happen again. And I think when I kind of threw my pole in the sand, Taker doesn't say he's the locker room leader.
No, never did.
No, exactly. I never say that either. But if people have questions and ideas or concerns, my doors get knocked on every. I feel like Vince sometimes. There's a lineup of people to talk to me because I have the advice, and not only telling you what you want to hear, it's sometimes telling you what you don't want to hear. So that's my responsibility there as well.
All right, I want to come back to AEW a little bit because I want to get into that New Japan stuff.
Right.
But growing up in Winnipeg, Canada, I know you're born in New York. Dad's a pretty badass hockey player.
Yeah.
I moved back to Winnipeg, go to the matches. You fell in love with the business. How did you actually get into business?
Yeah, I fell in love with the business because my grandmother used to watch wrestling, and I watched it with her. And she loved the good guys and hated the bad guys. She hated Jesse the Body Ventura, and I love Jesse Ventura, but I would never tell my grandma that. But I remember, this guy's so great. And I always was more, when I was a kid, I wanted to be, maybe you've heard this before a million times, but I wanted to be in a rock and roll band and I wanted to be a wrestler. And I love the individual identities that the wrestlers had. Like in hockey, they're a team. They wore the same uniforms. When the helmets came and the face masks, they're just like soldiers. Yeah. And you see Gretzky on the back, and we love Gretzky, but I loved Jesse the Body, and I loved Nick Bockwink, and I loved, because it was AWA. And Hulk Hogan was huge, and all those guys. I always kind of attuned that to more of a rock and roll vibe. Like, you knew the front man of the band, Paul Stanley, David Lee Roth, Bruce Dickinson. You equate that to the Hulk Hogan and that sort of thing. So I grew up wanting to be a wrestler. I knew what I wanted to do. And if you wanted to be a wrestler back in 1987, 88, in, northern Canada, you might as well be saying I want to be a sword swallower or a mime. People would be like, what? A wrestler?
Yeah.
How are you going to do that? How are you going to do that? Look at the back of an Apter magazine and try and find, whatever. So I was really into Stampede Wrestling because they had a lot of great smaller guys, right? I was like, Randy Savage and Ricky weren't small by any stretch of the imagination, but comparison, they were smaller. They were Owen, all these guys. Sometimes Davey and Brett would travel back to work for Stu, and it was just a whole different level of athleticism. And at the end of the show one day, they said, if you want to be a wrestler, here's the Hart Brothers Pro Wrestling Camp, and there's an address on it. And so I sent a self-addressed stamped envelope, and I sent the self-addressed stamped envelope, and 6 weeks later, I got my little pamphlet back to come to Hart Brothers Pro Wrestling. That's kind of what I set my sights on to go do.
So how much training did you get before you decided, hey man, you get a little action in the Canada area?
Yeah.
In Calgary. Then all of a sudden you're down in Mexico.
Yeah.
As a kid.
Yeah.
With what? One, maybe year and a half of experience?
So Christmas of '92. So yeah, just over 2 years at that point.
And what kind of transition was that from a guy from your neck of the woods down there in Mexico?
Yeah,
what was the learning curve on that?
It was weird because before that I'd done one tour of Japan with FMW, with Onita. And so that was the first kind of real culture shock. I remember I went to the store, like Lawson Station in Japan, which is like a 7-Eleven, and got a milk. And I drank the milk, and I remember drinking it. I just puked it up everywhere because it was goat's milk. Like all this weird stuff. So going to Mexico was a little bit closer than going to Japan. But there, both had the same qualities. I don't know if you experienced this when you were starting, especially as a foreigner. The guys wanted to beat you up. They didn't want you there. The Japanese guys, the Japanese guys were more just doing it because that's Japanese style. Mexican guys wanted to beat you up and hurt you. And these are low-level guys in like Monterrey, Mexico. So you dealt with that kind of with the low-level guys in Mexico when I first started. Once you got that out of the way, okay, let's work. And as the years kind of progressed, like when I went to Mexico to the big leagues, that's when I met Ultimo Dragon. And he was always looking for opponents, and I wanted to go to Japan because that's where Black Tiger was, and Flying Scorpio, and Jushin Liger, and Ultimo Dragon. So I went to Mexico. I always kind of had a plan. If I can go to Mexico and do good there, maybe I'll meet Ultimo Dragon, and maybe he'll take me to Japan. And after about a year of doing good in Mexico, Dragon took me to Japan. And then there was a little bit more of the intricate high spots and finishes because he and I were really good opponents together, really good chemistry, good dance partners. And that's when the business started increasing with high spots and all that sort of stuff. So you could kind of see that there's an evolution even in that short 3 or 4 year period.
But what kind of student were you in high school and college?
Terrible in high school. I wanted to rock and roll, man. I don't want to be in school. I wanted to play music. I had a high school band, and I wanted to go to wrestling matches and all that sort of stuff. Here's a real life lesson that I learned. I try and tell my kids and anybody else that asks me about this. When I went to college and I was doing something that I was interested in and cared about, then I got on the honor roll. You have to get through high school. That's what I tell my son all the time because he doesn't do his math homework. He doesn't do this. I was terrible at math.
I asked that question just, through the list of Jericho, which I guess is your latest book, right?
Yes.
I didn't know, how would I, that you wrote down every single match that you ever had, details behind it. And so, like when you said, you're a guy that always plans things out. Yeah. Man, you're a little bit ahead of your time because guys that jump in this business aren't thinking like you. They're just thinking day to day. You had a plan.
And I'm glad you brought that up. That's pretty cool that you brought that up. So yeah, the complete list of Jericho is this book that I'm doing. Well, I've done it. I've done it for the last 30 years. And once again, what does it go back to, Steve? When I got called to Gearbox for asking Keith Hart, how many matches have you had? I don't know. Nobody keeps track of that stuff, right? And I was like, I don't buy it. I'm going to keep track of this stuff. So this book, it was taken. I got to thank Pete Fornitail and Alex Marvez. I gave them this literally 300 pages of my matches and transcribed this. And the very first match that I had in October 2nd, 1990 was written on the piece of paper that I wrote that night. I still have it. It's the 30-year-old, it's like the scrolls of the Dead Sea Scrolls or something. So yeah, I did keep track of it because I always wanted to know, what did I do? Where have I gone? I kept star ratings of the matches. How much money did I make? Who did I wrestle? I can tell you any date that we ever wrestled. It's all in the database now. If that thing, for 30 years, if that went up in flames, I would have lost it all. Now it's ensconced forever, where we can always know. And nobody else has that.
So if you go, then you go to Japan, come back, to the States?
Yeah.
Smoky Mountain?
Yeah. I was always looking for the next step. So when I was in Mexico, I was there for about 2 years. And that was the first time I ever became a really big star, like almost like a Teen Beat idol. Like all the covers of the magazines, and Corazon de Leon was my name, Lionheart. And
you can see those early mannerisms that you can
see
really hone.
I always wanted to be, I knew I could never be the biggest guy in the show, because you think in 1990, it was about Hulk Hogan, 6'8", 300 pounds, whatever they said. I couldn't be the biggest guy in the show, but I could have the biggest personality, the biggest charisma, the biggest character, right? So I thought if I can be, going back to rock and roll, if I can be the ultimate rock and roll frontman in the wrestling ring, that'll give me, a little bit of an edge. What do? I can do the Paul Stanley. And this get the 15 people on this side of the crowd cheering, 10 people on this side. Like, but it was something. And like, wow, you're so charismatic, because I was trying. But it was 1993. I was 22 years old. I was working sometimes 10 matches a week. But that was all there. And then what happened was in Mexico that the peso crashed. And once the peso crashed, my earnings went down 60%. Not the promoter's fault. It's just the peso going from to U.S. dollars. So then it was time to kind of split and find somewhere else to go.
But I find it interesting, when you want to be this front man, you're already thinking about the character before you even got into the wrestling school.
Always.
Those guys trying to learn, hey, what's the lockup and all this, you already were leapfrogging them over, here's what I am. Yeah. Which is so important. And when I look back at your work now, I think, well, holy dummy, this was his singular goal.
Yeah.
To create this character, which has lasted, and you've tweaked him for 30 years and helped you have the career that you have.
Yeah, I remember in high school, my friend and I used to get the big gym mats. We called them porta pits. They're like the big thick ones. Yeah. And the gym teacher asked us, "What are you guys doing?" We said, "We're going to practice gymnastics." Once again, in the 80s, you could get away with that, like practicing gymnastics with nobody watching you. Meanwhile, we took it behind a big curtain on the stage. We worked out all these matches. It was called the Big Time Wrestling Federation. And you talk about schizophrenics. We played 10 characters each. So by the time I got to wrestling school, I had a character. I could do the basic moves. I couldn't do the real basic moves, but when it came to doing a body slam, I know that one. So I always was thinking about what the next step was, even when I was 16, 17, and that carries on even to this day now at 50 years old.
Yeah, so how did you end up in ECW? And did Paul Heyman impart any worldly wisdom on you as far as this game?
Sure. I mean, it's funny because so I went to Japan and worked a match at the Sumo Arena versus Ultimo Dragon. It was the WAR WAR was war, wrestle and romance. Japanese English, like wrestle and romance. Like, what part are you? I guess I'm the wrestler. I hope I'm not the romance. And it was the 3rd anniversary show, and it was a sold-out show. Never seen so many people hanging from the rafters. And Dragon and I had a really great match. It's one of my all-time favorite kind of early year Jericho matches, maybe my favorite. And that tape kind of seeped around. And actually, Mick Foley was at the show, and Mick told Paulie about this guy, Chris Jericho. So Paulie was like, I remember he called me in Calgary one day, a Saturday at 10 a.m. He said, "Can you get to Philly tonight?" Saturday at 10 a.m. in Calgary, "Can you get to Philly tonight?" I'm like, that's a freaking 10-hour flight, dude. Like, I could try, but it's already noon, and I thought I'd blown my chance because I couldn't make it in time. I'm never gonna get booked in. Well, it took me a year to get booked in ECW. I would call Paulie's house and have him answer, "Hello, hey, can I speak to Paul? Chris Jericho, I got Jimmy stuck on the other line. I'll call you right back." He probably said the same to you, right? 1 year it took to finally get in. When I finally got a hold of him, he goes, "Chris Jericho, I've been trying to get a hold of you for months." I'm like, what? And that's how I got into ECW. And people always kind of equate, "Oh, Jericho was an ECW guy." I really wasn't. I was only there for 11 weekends, 22 matches. But that was, once again, the bridge to get to the next step, which was to WCW.
So what was that bridge to get to ECW? Talk to me through Tom Pritchard. So I made the call, and sure enough, Dusty hired me. How did that go for you?
It's funny because, once again, I never had a problem hustling.
No, dude, that's one of the things I respect most about you. You're always hustling.
Yeah, and that came from my dad. He said, "No one's going to pick up the phone and call you. You got to be calling." So what happened was there was a show, and like I said, always looking for the opportunity. And so I was working full-time in Japan. What full-time means, I would go every month. In 95, I went to war 12 times. 2 weeks on, 2 weeks off. So what I would do is I would fly through LA, Calgary to LA to Tokyo. You got to take them, tickets that they send you. And I would stay for a couple of days. I knew some guys that had local Lucha Libre shows just in LA, and I would go work the shows, make a couple $100. Maybe I'll meet somebody, maybe I won't. Well, there was a show that came in 96. It was at Antonio Inoki's World Peace Festival. And what he did was he kind of, the forbidden door, it was WCW, New Japan, AAA, and a couple other, at low-level things at the LA Forum, right? And I was like, I got to get on this show. Because if I can get on this show, WCW and New Japan are going to be there. Maybe somebody will see me. So I knew a guy that knew a guy, and one of these local Lucha Libre guys was booking local talent. And I flew myself there, and they said, "We'll put you on the show if you get there." So I was thinking I'll be in some nondescript 8-man tag or something. I ended up in a 3-way match with Conan and Bam Bam Bigelow.
Damn.
Right?
Yeah.
And I think it's kind of what you just said earlier, that maybe I'd known Conan from Mexico. I think Bam Bam had seen me in the magazines because I had some steam in Japan, and so did he. And dude, and he was like, I think he was angry at something that was going on, and he was like, yeah, I'll put him over me. And I'm like, what? Like, not that it matters, but Bam Bam, it's the old, he gave me a German suplex, and I raised my shoulder, he did not, and I got the big win over Bam Bam and Conan. But what that match did was Bischoff was there. And Bischoff had been told about me, and this is the best part. Bischoff saw me the night before and said, come to Atlanta for a meeting, and then left before my match. Which I never understood. If I'm coming to Atlanta to have a meeting with you, and you're going to sign me, wouldn't you want to stay and see my match?
Scouting report, yeah.
He's been there anyways, but he off, and so that's how I got in.
You go to WCW, man, there's a great cast of guys for you to work with.
Yes.
So you got some killer matches going on. And your personality starts shining in WCW. And I have a video I want to play for you.
BG.
Good looking kid.
Thank you. Thank you very much. You know, since I took care of Mr. Jannetty so quickly, I came prepared. Excuse me.
This is great.
Malenko, you claim to be the man of 1,000 holds, but I counted, and you know about 60, but I know 1,000. Hold 2, arm bar. Hold 3, the moss-covered, 3-handled family Gradunzel.
Hang on.
Number 4, arm bar. Number 5, the Saskatchewan spinning nerve hold.
Hang on.
Number 8, arm bar. Number 9, the shooting star staple super press. Number 10, right-handed punch.
Okay, now to go to a commercial break. Here we come back.
Punch. Hold number 712, arm bar. Hold number 713, the Venezuela. Hold number 714, the Canadian.
All right, dude, I got to ask you, how did you get that cleared? What kind of relationship did you have with those guys? Because obviously it's pretty good. I mean, we've got a couple titles.
Yeah.
So what went behind that? Because that had to be your idea.
Well, here's the funny thing about that. So, it's funny. We should take a shot. We haven't had a shot yet.
Two shots.
Don't have to twist your rubber arm.
No.
Jeez Louise. Do you remember that time we were in some little town we were going to Japan, like somewhere like Harrisburg, Pennsylvania?
Yeah.
I stayed up all night drinking.
Yeah.
Then we got on the plane to Japan, and we tore it up, brother. Oh my gosh. Cheers.
Shot first and then the story.
There you go. Cheers, buddy.
What a career.
Ah, man, that's great.
Yeah, that's some good shit.
Yeah. Okay, so this, so it's really funny in WCW, when I finally turned heel, there wasn't a lot of emphasis on what I was doing, or any of us, like, you know, Eddie and all of our kind of guys, because it was all about NWO, which is fine. But I still contest to this day that as popular and as important NWO was, another reason why WCW was beating WWE in a certain way was because of the cruiserweights, aka guys.
Damn good matches.
Guys are having good matches, yeah. I think I booked 225 there, so I don't know exactly what kind of a cruiserweight it was, but that was what they put us. And so what I was doing is because I had some steam as a heel, I would ask Bischoff, can I say something before my match? He'd say, make it quick. And I would say something very quick, you know, like, unter Gleben, Glauten, Globen, or something stupid like, I want you to want me. Whatever it was. I'm the paragon of virtue, and boo. So this was in Chicago. And this was actually Disco Inferno's idea. He was able to get that through to Terry Taylor, I think it was. It was the booker at the time. So the idea was I'd have, you know, Dean Malenko's the man of 1,000 holes. I have 1,004. And so I thought, well, if I just keep saying the same one over and over again, and the 300 family Gradunzel that you said, of course, that was Scotty Ravens. He's like, yeah, you got to say 300 grand. It's from Dr. Zeus. Yeah, it's funny. So I do that. And what happened was I got 10 of them out. We go to break. And then during break, I just start cutting down, Bears suck, whatever. So when we come back from break, you hear the crowd booing, and they're all like doing this. It wasn't from the holds.
No, it was from
me saying, and by the way, and the Chicago Blackhawks suck. 3, 2, 1. Hold number 721. Arm drag. And there's, you know, and no one's telling that stuff. I'm just doing it. So there was a lot of those little things. People see that, and the reason, obviously, it's so funny and so entertaining. It's not really heelish, but I was just doing whatever I could to try and stand out, knowing that we weren't really getting a lot of emphasis from the company, but I was still getting TV time. And I wouldn't change anything about my 3 years in WCW, because what I did learn, people say there's a glass ceiling or this and that thing. I learned that when you have TV time, whether it's 1 minute or 10 minutes, that's your time. That's yours. And you have to do everything you can to stand out in that time frame. If you get 1 minute, you better do something to stand out, to make people remember you. Because you might not get a minute next time. Next time you might get 0. But if you get something that people can connect with, then maybe next week you'll get 2 minutes. So I really took that seriously. Every time I was on TV in WCW, no matter what the creative was, I wanted to stand out.
Did you feel like in WCW, when they labeled you as a cruiserweight, you ain't getting out of that box?
Yeah. I really kind of likened it to the Indian caste system, which goes back to grade 10 social studies. And what it means, if you're born at a certain level, you stay at that level. It doesn't matter how great you are, you'll never get to the level of the high society people. I remember when Bischoff first brought me in, he was like, "Oh, I got big plans for you, man." I'm like, "Oh my gosh, like, what's it going to be like?" He's like, "I want to make you our version of Shawn Michaels," who was, I think, the champ at the time. Like, "Oh my gosh, this is great. Are you going to put me against Sting, Piper?" He's like, "I want to put you with Brad Armstrong." Now, I love Brad Armstrong.
I do too.
And I don't even have to
God
say,
rest his soul.
God rest his soul. One of the best technicians, one of the funniest guys, but on the show, he was portrayed as an opening match guy.
Yeah.
And so right off the bat, I'm in an angle with an opening match guy, which, once again, Brad, I'm not saying, I'm saying, where do you see me here in this area? And, there was the cruiserweight area, which was a great opportunity, not cutting it down. But if you look at when Eddie was super over as a heel, you put Eddie against the babyface Sting, you put Jericho against, Luger, whoever, we could have done what I'm doing now, which is be the older guy working with a younger guy, which makes you both relevant, rather than just being the younger guy with the younger guy and the older guy with the older guy, which doesn't help anybody.
Right. I want to play one more promo for you. It's one of my all-time favorites. Remember this gig? Yeah. This is great. Oh, we got to talk about the hair. I love that look. You're the only son bitch can pull this off.
Well, there's another one that can do it. Gene Simmons.
Gotcha.
That's Gene
That's where it's from?
Yep. 100%.
Okay,
Okay, we're trying to find a way to the ring.
And this is, of course, from...
Spinal Tap.
Yes.
Yeah.
For those who don't know.
Yeah, completely from Spinal Tap. They can't find the stage. Look at Ralphus back there. Jericho Hulk Ninja with things looks like Kenny Powers.
What's his Salem cool?
Hello. It's like, hello, Cleveland. So we're trying to find our way to the ring. Randoms.
Who did you have to pitch this to? Bischoff?
Fishing to Bischoff, yeah.
Was this your idea?
Yeah. Eric was always cool with allowing me to do different things. So this is great. When I finally end up outside, I'll show you a couple things that happened here.
Where's the ring?
So they have to keep playing my ring music too.
Yeah.
Else it's subtle in the background, right?
Don't hurt your mind. Here it is, okay. Rock and roll!
Here we go. This is almost... was that kind of like almost a Stonehenge moment?
Yeah, it was...
Hey, Goldberg.
Yeah, it's very Stonehenge, yeah. Just playing like over the top scenery chewing heel.
Thank you. How did this idea come up?
Once again, just trying to think of stuff, and the Ralphus thing was Goldberg walked to the ring, was surrounded by security guards, and I thought, well, I should walk to the ring surrounded by security guards too. So I was going to get a bunch of guys from the power plant, and then I used to see that guy Ralphus just hanging around. He's a truck driver. He drove the lighting truck, and he was like, "Hey, how's it going? How you doing?" And he had these really weird teeth that stuck out the side, like candy corn upside down, like come out the side of the teeth there. And I just said, "You want to near the ring?" He had no idea what was going on. I said, "Can you wear this shirt if I cut it in half?" And just comedy, right? Like just anything I could do, which at the time it actually really got hate. Like, this guy's such an idiot. You watch it back now, how can this be a heel? It's like so funny, right? And I was just trying to think of stuff, and I probably just watched Spinal Tap. It's one of my favorite movies when they get lost going to the stage. I thought, what if I get lost going to the ring?
Okay, so you get lost going to the ring. And these are great. I mean, this is where the character is really starting to be honed up. You're not there yet, but boy, you're really good.
Showing flashes.
Right, flashes. The work's there. And then the WCW run comes to an end. Prompted by what?
Prompted by the fact that I wanted to work for Vince.
Oh, You wanted to go work for Vince.
Oh yeah,
You knew that was the Holy Grail,
always.
but it wasn't the Goldberg issue, or you felt slighted.
I'll tell you that. But once again, always having this plan of mine.
Bobby.
Keep in mind, I grew up in Winnipeg. We didn't have WCW there. We didn't really have NWA. They came once or twice. I worked in Madison Square Garden, where my father played hockey, and where I remember watching him as a little kid. Unfortunately, WWE wasn't calling me at the time, but WCW did. I thought, well, if I can go there, maybe either I'll become a big star and they'll take me, or whatever will be. When I did the thing with Goldberg, which was just supposed to be a joke.
Right.
I was on the pay-per-view. I challenged Goldberg. They sent out Gilbert, or not a Gilbert, it was a version, like another Gilbert type.
Right.
And that kind of started this whole thing. Bill at the time was very young. He was very angry at me for doing it. And we kept pushing it to where we built up this match to go with Jericho and Goldberg. It never happened because Bill didn't want to do it, and just one thing led to another. And once I was like, we've got an angle here, and people were super into it. And what I wanted to do was, I wanted to do the greatest squash match of all time, and it just never transpired because we could never get the match in the ring. You know, I remember I even was like, oh, God, if I wear amateur wrestling shoes and he spears me, he can spear me out of my shoes and I'll kick my shoe out into the 15th row. You know what I mean? And it just never happened. And so when that didn't happen due to the politics and opinions and attitudes and that sort of thing, I said, what else can I do here? I created an angle out of nothing that was never supposed to be anything, and people would pay to see this because they kept wanting him to beat me on TV. I said, why? Let's do it on pay-per-view. I have no grand illusions that I'm going to beat him. Of course he's going to beat me. He's going to beat me definitively. He's going to beat me like Goldberg, but let's make people pay to see it. Not just be number 150 and 0 after you beat, Hugh Morris and George Johnson or whatever, and they just never were able to do that. And that's when I was like, I got to get out of here.
So did the contract expire? Did you just...
Well, no. So, and once again, I've never, as you can tell, I've never had a problem leaving when I know it's time to go. And so once the Goldberg thing happened, I was like, okay, I need, because there's nothing more I can do better than this. I mean, I can do stuff as good, but this was great.
Right.
It really was, especially for where I was at the time. If I watch it back now, I probably think I was okay, but I was 27 years old, right? So I knew that it was time to go, and then it was so crazy in WCW. I actually had no contract for the first 17 months I was there. I didn't sign it, just to see how long I could go without signing it, right? So I thought the same, like they'll probably just, my contract will just expire and they won't know. They just won't even realize it. But Bischoff did realize it. And then he started to track me down. He wanted me to sign a new contract. And I avoided him. And finally, I made a deal. And then it took another 6 months where he didn't actually give me the contract. So we had a verbal deal. And then after 3 or 4 months, I was like, if this was Hogan, that contract would be done the next day.
Yeah, right.
So 3 or 4 months, and now I'm starting to avoid him. And then I remember the famous line I told him, or no ticky, no laundry. And I was like, what? He goes, no ticky, no laundry. Okay? And what he meant was, if you don't sign the contract, you can't keep the U.S. championship. So he's like, I lost the U.S. championship to Conan that night in D.C. And then I just decided to kind of run out the string. And the last 2 months that I was there, they only had me do house shows, which is not a problem at all because house shows are fun. And that was it. I wasn't. He thought that by taking me off TV, that would screw me with WWE. But in reality, it made it even better because I was expecting him to job me out. And I had a whole thing I was going to do. Like, if they take my ring music, I'll pull a rock and roll buck zoom off and walk the ring with a ghetto blaster. And if they give me a losing streak, I'll make a T-shirt, Jericho 0 and 10. I'll make something out of this. And they just left me off TV, and that was it. I basically coasted right into WWE.
God dang, I love the way you're thinking though. Like you're gonna do,
like,
things that you're gonna do for self-survival.
Once again, too, Steve, like I said, as long as you put me on live TV, there's nothing you can do.
No,
because I'm gonna make it good. I don't care if you say lose to Ice Train in 30 seconds. I will make sure you remember Jericho with the boombox coming to the ring or whatever it may be.
We're about to get to some video stuff of stuff that you make excellent. But before we do, when I went to WWE back in the day, they had talked to me a couple times. I knew they didn't really have plans for me.
Right.
Finally, after being in ECW, I knew I needed to go, and I did. And I met with Vince a couple of times. So, what was your recruitment trip?
Oh, it's a great story.
I gotta hear it.
It's a great story. And once again, something that will probably never happen again. So what happened was, I'm very close with Don Callis. And Don was working for WWE at the time. He was in the writer's room with Bruce Pritchard and with Vince Russo. And Don said, Vince Russo wants to call you. I'm like, sure. And he called me. And he said, what's your contract status? I said, well, I have another year and a half here. I'm not going to leave. I can leave now, but I'm not going to do that. I signed for 3 years, and my word is my bond, whether there's a signed contract or not. I'm not going to just walk out of here. But at the end of these 3 years, I've always wanted to work at WWE. It's what I want to do. And so we kind of came to a little bit of a like, just keep in touch. Let's keep in touch. Fast forward, I remember we had, it was once again in Chicago at the United Center, and I believe it was about January of 99. And my contract was up August of 99. And I did the show at the United Center, and I told WCW Travel that I was going to go visit my family. I'll take care of my own travel home. Got my ticket from the WWE, got on the plane to Stamford. Landed in LaGuardia. I got in the limousine, and they took me to Vince's house. Think about this. I'm under contract now to WCW, and I'm going to Vince's house. Okay? Worker boots that I was wearing like a super tight thing, and I remember just like doing this on the way to the back of the limousine, and like, you know, my hair and everything. Like, I was nervous, right? And knock on the door, and have you been to Vince's house?
Yeah.
Yeah, I've only been there once. So what I'm remembering might be fantasy now, because it was in 1999, but I remember I knocked on the door, and Shane asked, I'm Shane McMahon. I'm like, hey, man. They take me in to Vince's house, and they're having a booking meeting for Raw. They were all sitting around a table. And Russo doesn't remember this, but I'm not making it up. And I sat down. Guess where I sat? Right next to Vince. And boy, do you think that was a coincidence? No, it was not. And I'm sitting there, and I'm like, what am I doing here? Like, I'm some skid from Winnipeg. Used to, like, watch Saturday Main Event and stand in line to buy tickets to see Jake the Snake versus Hulk Hogan and Liberia. And now I'm, like, they're doing a booking meeting. And I remember I think the match was D'Lo Brown versus Gangrel, let's just say. And they're like, what should the finish be? And they're going to finish. And Vince goes, Chris, what do you think the finish should be?
Dude, you didn't say that.
Dude, I'm not making this up. This is not wrestling exaggeration.
Yeah, no, I believe you.
They asked me what my opinion was of a finish.
Yeah.
I'm just using D'Lo as an example. Yeah. And I was like, I guess D'Lo sounds great, Vince. Like, I'm literally thinking, what am I doing here? Like, why am I here? And then they break for lunch. Then they order lunch from the deli or whatever it was, and they get a roast beef sandwich or whatever. And then his maid, his housekeeper, had made homemade brownies. So they bring the brownies, and you know, like homemade brownies, they smell nice and like good. Like, am I supposed to eat one of these? Like, I'm still trying to be all big. Like, what is this? Like, everything, like, is this a test? I don't know. And so I wait till Vince grabs one, and then I grab one. Really good brownies, they're really nice, lovely. And then as soon as I'm finished, we're talking, and then I look at the brownie thing. And as I look at the brownie thing, and Vince is also looking at the brownie thing. It was like there was a moment that was not planned, and we looked at each other in the eye, and he goes, "If two gentlemen can't have a second brownie, then what can you have? Go ahead, Chris." So we had a second brownie together. Eat the brownie, dude. And then we go down to his little. He has a little, like you walk down some steps, and there's like kind of a sunken area, like a lip or something. And on the wall is a giant painting of who? Vince.
I got one too in my double wide.
And it's not even Vince in the tuxedo. It's Vince like in a remember the old rag top shirts and the Zubaz, and he's just kind of like this. And then I remember just like, you know, Vince, he'll let you hang yourself. I remember just talking like, blah, 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 blah. I think I'd be like The Rock, but I wouldn't be like The Rock. But I think I could be like blah, blah, blah. And he's like, all he ever said was, when your contract is done, let us know. He didn't say, I want to use you.
Right.
He didn't say, get out of there. He just said, when your contract is done, let us know, right? And years later, I asked him, why did you do that? Why did you bring me there? Because I didn't say anything to anybody. And I don't know why he brought me there, and maybe that was just an excuse that he said. He said, I wanted to see if I could trust you. When the word didn't get around, I knew that you were you're the right type of human to work for us, or whatever he said. But I'll never forget that, and never forget driving back. And my fiance at the moment was my wife still, and she was like, what happened? I was like, I really don't know. I don't know what just happened. But I'll never forget that.
But during that meeting with Vince, did you feel like you would get an opportunity to work on top if you were to come to WWE?
Maybe it was innocence or naivety, but I really did. I really felt like, because at the time, you got to remember this too. If you're talking about 99 Raw, this is SmackDown, everybody on the show was over. And you could be first match over, or you could be main event over. But everybody had a purpose had a story, had something going on. And I really felt like, and once again, I am not cutting down WCW because it was really great learning. I had some great matches, great time, but I had outgrown it. It was time to get to where I needed to be, the big leagues. Okay. I always considered WWE big leagues. And I figured because it was the big leagues, I always use the analogy. It was almost like being in the Wizard of Oz. And WCW was the black and white world. And then when I opened the door for WWE, it was color.
Right.
And I thought that at least I would have a shot.
Right.
You know? But that day at Vince, I thought, I can do this. I can make it there.
Okay, the countdown to the millennium is officially underway. It's a series of countdowns that appear on Raw leading to August 9th, 1999. Whose idea was that, and, to build effectively hype for your appearance?
Well, if it was a song, it would be covered by Jericho and Vince McMahon. So I remember standing in the line at the post office, and there was a clock that's a countdown to the millennium. And it was, 3 months, 4 days, 5 hours, and 16 seconds, 15 seconds, 14 seconds. And I remember thinking that'd be a great way for somebody to come into the WWE. It'd be a great way for me to come into the WWE. And that's why I said, I'll be the Millennium Man. The countdown to the new millennium. That's me. And the Millennium Man is going to be a change. Getting rid of all the old and bringing the new. For my promos was that everybody in WWE was boring and only I was the most entertaining guy and all this other stuff. And that's where it all came from that post office. So I called Vince Russo and I told him this idea. And he thought it was great. And he called Vince. And here's the genius of it. We calibrated it so that it would end like at the beginning of Raw. And I would open the show. But Vince said, no, you're gonna come out in the middle of the show and interrupt a promo by The Rock, which to me was the genius of all geniuses.
One of the top guys in the entire industry.
You and him, like I always say, and not just because you're here, that if you're lucky enough to have a Bruno or a Hulk or a Cena, it's a 1 in a million, one of them. And to interrupt him in the middle of his promo, like that's like I always say Vince is like this. Like I'm like, okay, I'm building this. And this is great. Chris, that's really great. And Vince will go, what if you did this? Oh my gosh, that's a million times better. That's what Vince does. He would always say, like, I just booked this, you gotta make it work.
Yeah.
He's not a guy that has like all these, he has ideas, but not like all the ideas, but he can really see, like, move this there. And he's the guy that came up with interrupting The Rock in the middle of the promo. And to me, that was why it worked. It was because of that one little detail that just brought me right in and defeated The Rocket right away.
Look at that shot right there.
Yeah.
To me, because, dude, look at the swagger, look at the confidence, the entire package. I mean, you look like a superstar here. You model yourself after a frontman of a rock and roll band. But this is polished, and this is a main event presentation right here.
I had never worn this outfit before. I always believe when you go to a new company, or when you turn babyface or heel, vice versa, you have to have something different that people understand, oh, this is a different guy, right? It's just a little thing, but you had never seen me wear this outfit before until this night.
What are you thinking before you go out? Man, that clock is ticking down.
Yeah.
Rock's out there cutting a promo on the big show, and there you are in the back. Dude, this is sink or swim.
Right. I remember the promo that I did, I wrote it on the floor of my apartment, and I wrote it all down in kind of a school notebook. So I had it all down 2 weeks before this happened. And the only guys that knew were Rock and Vince Russo, because we rehearsed it in that catering area that we used to have at Rosemont. Just the three of us. And Rock threw in a couple lines, and that was it. So the only three people that knew it was going to happen was me and Rock and Vince Russo, not even Vince McMahon. And that, to me, is one of the reasons why it worked, because it wasn't oversaturated, over-sanitized. It was just my raw feelings, no pun intended, feelings and ideas. Threw a little bit of a ringer with Rock, and here we go.
Okay, this is slightly edited. You won't see the whole thing.
That's fine.
You shred the entire locker room. Talk about ratings plummeting. People are boring. You're there to be the new hero, the savior. Throw the video, and let's break this thing down, because there's a lot here.
Yeah.
Then tonight, in front of all the Rocks fans, you will go one-on-one with the Great One.
I always like the way The Rock did his movements, this, that, and that turning.
People forget how he was in the ring as a worker and as a promo guy.
But just as a promo, the way he did all the movements.
He had the swagger.
Okay, here we go. Did that? I love it.
This is all Kevin Dunn and his team created that. Probably Adam Panucci, who was very underrated in the Jericho pantheon. Yeah.
Dude, watch this. You know it, you did it. You got your back to everybody,
I'll tell you where I got that.
Okay, I love it. This pose.
Look at this. How did they know?
This is magic right here.
Welcome to Raw is Jericho!
Look at that comment. Dude, you're on fire right here.
Yeah, I was feeling it.
Locked in. When you got that feeling.
Yeah. Kisses. God, that crowd was so nuts.
Dude, that was Chicago.
Yeah, once again.
Put you in Nassau.
Yeah. Pittsburgh.
Yeah.
And now that the Y2J problem is here, this company, from the front office to all the amateurs in the dressing room, including this one,
Amateurs in the dressing room.
to everybody
Dude, you
watching,
shredded
That's so
everybody.
much heat.
never,
He's not even knowing it.
ever be the same again.
And then you go on slicing up that locker room for about three and a
Yeah,
half minutes. So we truncated a little bit, but
How dare you, little jabroni, come on the Rock Show and not even have the class to introduce yourself? What is your name? I told you it doesn't matter what your name is.
shirt's coming
Gotta
off.
get off, baby.
Okay, you look at that.
Yeah, dude.
What's going through your mind?
You know, it's funny because once again, you asked me earlier about this great career and all this stuff, and you think, like, for me, because I'm still in it, right? But when I see this, it's like, you know what? Like, it's pretty cool, man, because it still does stand up as one of the greatest debuts ever.
The greatest.
And, well, thanks, man. And like I said, to me, I'm not being egotistical, but I'll tell you where all this comes from. Because I'm a student of the game and I'm a fan. I used to love watching WWE Saturday's Main Event when you see a vignette of someone that's coming in. You know, Bam Bam Bigelow, who's going to be his manager? Or even something like, I remember Skinner coming out of the thing. It's, like, it's not a great gimmick, but you're like, who is this Skinner guy? Like, I want to see this. And I wanted a great kind of vignette. And so the countdown, people knew something was coming. And they obviously knew that it was me. And this was pre-internet once again. And I almost feel like in a lot of ways that there was a hand-written invitation given out to half the crowd because they knew it was going to be me. And I didn't realize how much they would care that it was going to be me because as much as we have bravado and we think we're the hot when I came out there, I was like, oh my gosh, I knew that I had to hit a home run. What I didn't realize, and once again, I'm just playing a character on a show, calling everybody amateurs and boring. And you could probably say from your side, I got a lot of heat for real. It was real. It's like, yeah, we're just boys, but there was a division there.
Correct.
You know, that's like AEW versus WWE. It's real. So by saying that stuff, I'm just going, oh my gosh, I must have got so much heat for all these things that I said. But take that out of the equation, that was pretty awesome. And I'll say a couple other things. Another thing was that The Rock was always great at giving to his opponent. In the ring, promo-wise, like, dude, he sat there for 3 minutes as I said all my bullshit. Didn't balk it. He could have said, Vince, come on. Who is this guy?
Yeah.
And it's like, I always thank Rock for that. He stood there and listened to it, you know? And the thing with the back to the crowd, you know where I got that from?
What?
Michael Jackson.
No shit.
I saw Michael Jackson in Mexico City in 1993. And he comes out of the thing, and his back is to the crowd, and he stood there literally for like 5 minutes. And people were going crazy. And I'll never forget, like, oh my gosh, what a way to make it. No, it's Michael. But he does nothing. Nothing. And then at one point he went, it goes to wrestling. It's not what you do, it's when you do it. And that was like, I thought, this is a Michael Jackson. I'll stand there. You know, if it wasn't live TV, I could have stood there another 3 minutes.
Yes.
That's where that all came from.
When you went back, I mean, you hit the grand slam as you needed to hit because it was a sink or swim moment, right? It's on the line here.
It was.
The man took a chance on you. Here you are. It gives you this great debut. You sell the clock at the post office. Knock it out of the park. Cloud nine? I mean, because back in Gorilla, they didn't clap you out or they didn't hug you. There's two guys there.
Yeah, and actually, there was the early days of the internet. I remember reading reports that backstage people thought Jericho was too comical. And if you look, this was still shades of my WCW scenery chewing. I'm making weird faces like Popeye or something like this, or like over exaggerating. But I'm still transitioning from WCW guy to WWE guy. And looking back on it now, when you watch the whole thing, I give it an 8 out of 10. There's things I would do better, but I also think there was a big target on my back because of where I came from, and because I got a guaranteed deal that was some pretty decent money to get there. And I also think too, there's some people that just didn't want me there because I was a WCW guy. Not realizing, I talked to Triple H about this on Talk is Jericho. We hated each other for years, and we don't even really know why now. But at the time, it was like, this guy's a piece of shit. And he said, I never realized that you came here on your own. Like, I thought maybe, like, you know, your contract was up or they didn't want you. Like, I took as much of a stand to get there as he did. He left to get there, as you did. Like, you were always cool, though, but there was people that were just really angry that I was there just because I came to take their spot or whatever it was.
Okay, but now looking back, you know, hindsight 2020, you give it 8 out of 10. For then and what it was, that was a 10 out of 10.
For Chris.
And that lens.
Yes. August 9th, 1999, that was the absolute best I could have done. The Rock did the absolute best he could have done, so it's a 10 out of 10 for sure.
Okay, because we're talking about 30 years, let's jump a little bit forward in time to a world title match in State College, Pennsylvania. And here's some footage. I want to ask you about this match, because was this a test?
Oh, absolutely.
Y'all were rocking the house.
Absolutely.
You guys had good chemistry in the ring. I always had good chemistry in the ring with Triple H.
Yeah. Absolutely, he really did. He's a great heel, and I was a great foil for him.
He's such a ring general. Sometimes I'm like, I'm that guy.
Right.
And he likes to be that guy.
But for me at this point, I was just trying to find my way.
Gotcha. Here we go. Nice. Boom.
What's the crowd?
Well, place. There's a look. The whole sales job watch from here on out.
What is it, John and JBL.
Because you hired APA.
Yeah, to be the security.
Stephanie's pissed. Because of hurt back.
Your winner and Jericho!
Great piece of business here. So, okay, give me the backstory on that one.
This is another great story. Once again, let's see the blood. I cut my lip open, which happy accent just adds to the drama. This is such a great story, Steve. I came in, once again, this big debut against The Rock, and then just instantly started floundering. You know, losing to this guy, losing to that guy, losing blah, 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 blah. The week before, I had a match with Viscera, wherever we were, and I lost to Vis. And by the way, it was actually a really good match. It was one of those ones where just like all the stars aligned. That guy was a big man. Yeah. We had a really good match. And I remember once again, like, if this is all I got, like losing to Viscera on Sunday Night or whatever it was, there had been calls from WCW, come back. Not that I could have gotten out of the contract anyways, but I remember at the time now there was writers. It's Brian Gewirtz, as you would say, and another guy called Tommy Blancha. And I was going to State College, and I was like, I'm going to either tell Vince to do something with me or I want out. And I'm walking down the hallway, and I see Tommy standing there. And Tommy goes, where are you going? I said, I'm going to go talk to Vince, and you know, I got some stuff to say, and I'm going to tell him I want out. You know, and he's like, you might not want to do that. I'm like Gilligan, you can't make me. What do you got? He said, well, tonight you're going to win the world title. I was like, let me hear what you have to say. And he told me the scenario.
Amazing.
And that's God's honest truth. The idea was that I started this thing with Stephanie. Once again, just kind of a random thing that we had just great chemistry. She's awesome on a fast count. And then Earl Hebner would be forced to rescind the title win, and I would give it back. So if it was a test, which it was, I would say that I passed it, because here's the thing. Hunter said, slow down and listen to me. And once again, this is still the first 6 months in. I had never heard of bump and feed in my life when I got to WWE. Think about it. Never heard of it. Never heard of it in my life.
Okay, keep going. He told you to slow down.
He said, slow down and listen to me. And I said, okay. And I already didn't like this guy, and I knew he didn't like me because of stuff that we had happen to us. But I said, I believe in him in the ring.
Right.
And he orchestrated a great match. And you see the end of the match. It was so well done. And the whole match is really good. And I remember just thinking, like, okay, this is a test. And when you watch the crowd there, they went absolutely ballistic.
Yes.
And whatever Vince was looking for,
that was the answer.
That was the answer. And I remember afterwards, I went to the makeup mirror. Because remember, I'm a WWE fanatic. All I ever wanted to be was the WWE Intercontinental Champion. Now I'm the WWE Champion. And I remember just standing in the ring and just looking at it. I said, if the world gets attacked by aliens from Grimlock right now, and they explode the world, I'm cool with it
Yeah.
because I became the WWE champion. And I said, Vince, does it feel weird that I have to give it back? He said, don't worry, you'll have it again someday. And I was like, oh my gosh, like, Vince doesn't say stuff like that, really. So to me, it was one of those things where, well, let's see what he's going to do, both in the match and the reaction. And I think I got, once again, 10 out of 10 on both. And I think that's when I finally got out of the funk of being WCW guy who doesn't know how to work the WWE style, who doesn't know how to be a main eventer, and that proved it all wrong right there.
So Vince saw that they're, hey man.
Yeah, and here's the best part. So the next night, we're in Philly, and they have a lumberjack match, me versus Rock, and then something happens where Triple H hits Rock, and I get the pin. I get the big, stamp of approval. And I was so excited. And in those days, as you know, we did it countless times, you'd grab the microphone and you would say a promo for the fans after the show was done. You'd always leave them with something extra. So I grabbed the mic, and I remember the crowd was just going crazy, and it was like such a great moment.
I just wanted to tell you that. But seriously, thank you guys. You've been a great crowd.
Did I just say that? I look over at Jerry Lawler, and he was standing there. He's like, yeah, he said it. He just said the F word. And I was like, oh my gosh. Thank you, good night. And probably nobody cared, but this is WWE. You can't bother saying, And I go to the back, and Vince is standing there. And he's like, come here, pal. And he gives me the hand. And like a moron, I go, didn't you hear what I said out there? And he's like, what did you say? And I was like, nothing. What did you say? And I was like, I was about ready to get the pal.
Yeah.
How rare are the pal handshake? Effing crowd. And he's like, Jericho. And he walked out, and I just stood there like, no!
So you got to be feeling good because in WCW, with all the stuff that you did, the
Yes.
titles that you had,
Yeah.
you were a cruiserweight guy.
Yes.
Here, I mean,
Yeah, world champ.
You've broken out of the cruiserweight box.
Yeah.
Now you are a WWE superstar,
Right.
and working your way to being one of the best in the world. Well, what was your thoughts on that? Because you were contained, now you're not.
Yeah, once again, I think that this really opened the door to at least they knew that if they needed to put me in that spot, they could count on me to do that.
Well, man, they're about to put some steam on you
Right.
because we're going to move forward a little bit. And you're gaining momentum as 2001 is coming to a close. You're going to come into a pay-per-view called Vengeance with your biggest opportunity yet. You defeated The Rock and myself.
Stone Cold
I believe
Steve
that
Austin.
was San Diego
Yeah.
at the sports arena.
Yeah.
And so you defeat two of the top guys
Yeah.
in the business at the time,
The two top guys.
back to back.
Yeah.
So let's play a little footage from that illustrious event because I think you were talking about this for quite some time afterwards. And Rock, when he throw that damn arm pad, watch Vince's mouth. He always would ask over tea kettle on it. David ripped his teeth out every single time he did it. But damn, what a sell, y'all. Low blow, nice. Feed back in. Oh, what? Rock bottom. Well, Desperate cover the leg. Grab that knee pad. 3 count. That's a big swinging 3 count from Earl Hebner. That's a championship count. Right? It is. Cadence means everything. Mike Tyson quick counted me on the 14. I remember. Hell, I'm about to come to the ring now. You gotta get it on.
See the face hurts like a
Are you happy as a lark here?
Like I forgot there's another match.
A little bit of action here. Man, them damn chops. See ya, Earl. Grab that lower back, buddy. Watch out.
Doing the same spot to this day. You caught me.
Yeah, the walls here.
Oh, jeez, this is back in the day we were doing each other's moves.
Yes.
Arn Anderson hated it.
What are you doing?
Why are you doing each other's moves?
Oh, look, here we go.
No ref. You get the visual.
No ref.
You get the visual win.
Yeah.
Gotta have that for every time, babyface.
So,
Can't ever lose without getting the visual.
no.
Flair comes down, then Vince comes down. It's like the thing freaking the doink comes down. I remember. Oh, dude, I remember. I got a story. I remember all this.
Oh, I got a question for you. I want your story first. One. Because you get no more deliberate than that. Jesus
It was
Christ.
just like, what? You put the title on that guy?
No, I mean, did you see that 3K?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
That's like the real
I know.
championship.
You're really-
I'm like, we're really making this mother.
You really can't kick out on the...
Damn it. I'm broken up.
Another...
What's your story? And I'll get to the question.
So people always ask, why didn't you have somebody in the front row? Where was your dad? Where was your wife? Because you see, like, Bret Hart wins the title and Calgary, there's 18 people in the ring. The reason why I didn't have anybody there is because I didn't know the title until that day. No idea whatsoever. And how I found out that I was going to win the title is that I was eating catering, and at this point in time, Vince would still go to catering, and he was standing kind of over here with Taker, and he knew I was within earshot, and he's talking loudly, as you know Vince can do, and he's like, "Hey, Taker, you know the business is going down the toilet? How? We're putting the title on Jericho." And then he walks away, and I'm like, is he serious? And that's when I found out, because I had heard... Maybe you told me, maybe Pat did, but then Kurt told me he was going to win, and like I didn't know what was going on, man. So that's how I found out that I was winning the title, was that day, about 3 hours before the show.
That was going to be my question. I mean, I thought you were going to be at Vince's office, and he was going to lay this out for you.
No, he did not. And he did that for future championship reigns, but not for this one. The story I was going to tell was that finish was so convoluted between you and I that at one point you were like, I don't know what's going on. Just call it to me. You said that to me. To call it to you. Remember? I don't know if you remember, but
I do.
So much, like, Booker comes in, then Flair comes down, then Vince is down, there's a ref bump, this ref gets pulled out, that ref comes in, there's literally 8 people down there for this finish.
Dude, there was so much going on, man, and I was pretty fried. I was running pretty hard.
You're right.
But I respected you, and I was down to do business.
Yeah.
But I do remember that. I said, dude, yeah, call it.
Just call it to me.
Yeah, because I was fried. But will I do it? Damn right.
Yeah, you did. It was great. And like I said, listen, I think that the way this was put together, because I remember, here's another one. A couple weeks before that, you and I had a match on TV, and you went over. And I said to Paul Heyman, so if Steve and I are going to be working in this tournament, is it okay for him to beat me? And Paul said, just do it. Like, trust me, just do it. I was like, okay. Because I was getting beat by everybody until I win in this tournament. It's a very strange thing that WWE does sometimes. Instead of building somebody to where it's like, okay, he's going to win, it's like beat him.
Come from nowhere.
And from nowhere. So it wasn't really an over champion.
Right.
Because I wasn't at the level of you and get me to that level. I don't know.
So how did you feel coming out of this?
This is great. So I go back to the locker room, and Rock's already gone. He was halfway back to LA by that point in time. He's not waiting around. I don't even remember if I saw you, but I do remember just kind of going back to the locker room and everyone was gone. I remember there was a big roll of carpet. Like maybe they hadn't laid it down. I just sat on that carpet for a while and like really kind of trying to like just drink it in, man. No pun intended. And I remember Roddy Piper told me, maybe later years, the guy in the main event has the loneliest job in the company. Why? Because everybody uses your match to get to the car and leave to beat the traffic. And by the time you come out of the ring, everyone's gone. So there's no like big celebration. It's just me sitting there, right? So then our next night we're in Anaheim. And I drive from San Diego to Anaheim. And this is back when you just rent hotels when you can. There's no hot wire or whatever. And there's a Hilton near Anaheim, Orange County area. And I pull into there. And I said, can I have something to eat? And it's 5 to midnight. The restaurant closed at midnight. I said, it was 5 to midnight. Like, no, it's closed. I'm like falling down Michael Douglas. And it's not midnight yet. So he goes, here's a pizza man. I remember his name was Regis J. O'Rourke Jr. So I go to the room and I have my little Domino's thing and I take my titles on. I'm like, this is pretty cool. I put the titles on the bed and I call Domino's Pizza. Time goes by, 30 minutes are free, 29 minutes they call, we can't reach you have to come down. I'm like, okay. So I go down, I pick up my pizza, I go back up the stairs, and I lock myself out of the room. So I go back down the stairs and go talk to Regis J. O'Rourke Jr. I said, Regis J. O'Rourke Jr., I left my key in the room. Can you give me a new key? He said, do you have any ID? I said, I don't. It's in the room. He said, well, I need proof. I'm like, dude, I literally just checked in like half an hour ago. Like, you literally just saw me check in. And he goes, I'm going to need proof. I'm like, dude, like, I'm locked out of the room. I got a pizza, and that's it. So he goes, well, I'm going to have to come to your room and make sure you're not lying. I'm like, okay. So he goes up to the room, and he's got the key. He goes, you stand here. I'm like, okay. Why? He goes, because I have to make sure it's your room. I said, okay. He goes, what's in the room? I said, when you go inside that room, you're going to see 2 title belts on the bed because I'm the undisputed champion. Okay? So Regis goes in the room. He comes and goes, you're telling the truth. I was like, exactly. Get out of here. So I go and sit down on the edge of the bed. I'm so pissed off now. I put the pizza on the edge of the bed. I sit down, and the pizza flips and goes on the freaking floor. And so here's what I had for my Undisputed Championship dinner. Was it lobster thermidor? No. It was a dust-infested pizza that was half cold because Regis Jericho Jr. wouldn't let me into the room.
Hey, man, let's fast forward to 2003, WrestleMania 19.
Yes.
My last match.
I still can't believe it was your last match.
I can't either. But you're going to work a match with Shawn Michaels.
Yeah.
And I thought, from that, we're going to see the finish.
Yeah.
But if you can, go back to watch WrestleMania 19, Chris Jericho versus HBK. Because even in the match, getting close to the finish, you guys have been beating the shit out of each other.
Yeah, in Seattle.
Hell of a crowd. About 70,000 there.
Sean's punch is so good, man. Sean's awesome, man. He's another guy that you forget when you watch his stuff how good he is.
Like this, that, something that he makes look so easy is not easy. Good club, here we go. We're going home. Bam, there you go, grab the feet, boom.
Yeah. He got that from Owen Hart.
Gets up in there, crowd goes ape shit. What a pop. And it was a hell of a damn match, back and forth. You got all your shit in.
Yeah.
All you got is Canada. Good about getting your shit in, working a body part, being
I think it makes
physical.
sense, right? Yeah.
Yes. And here he goes, man, that was awesome. Trying to shake your hand. Look at the way you're selling this.
Brother's got a hug.
But you're playing it so vanilla here, you just think, man, he's my hero. I'm hugging him. But not so fast, my friend. Well.
Watch it sell.
That fall into your arms, that's the money.
Yeah.
And you shuck him like a piece of spit. Watch, here it is. Coming. Listen to that heat. Listen to that heat. Okay, he's selling out here. He come out of the ring. Matter the Hornet. Here's a footnote. That's WrestleMania 19.
Yeah.
That was his first WrestleMania back from working with me at WrestleMania 14 in Boston when I took the belt off him.
5 years later, yeah.
So he comes back. You give him a hell of a Mania match. He goes over in a match where you both shine. He gets the W. You go out with the L, but you leave with phenomenal heat. So there's no loss.
It's a lesson that Pat Patterson and Vince too taught me, because I was really like, why am I losing this? Like, I should win. I should win. Because that's what you think when you're, what year was that? 2003. I was 32, but still very young. I didn't really become Chris Jericho till 2008. This is 2003.
Interesting that you would say that.
And I remember Pat was so smart, you know, like we can say this, it's a cliche at this point, but the guy was just a genius. Like, he really was like a wrestling Yoda, and we were all just like young Jedis learning from him. He's like, I'm not going to try and do the accent, but he said, why do you need to win? He said, it's actually, but here's the thing though, Steve, the original idea was for Shawn to win, and that was it. Pat came up with the idea, well, why don't you kick him in the nuts at the end? And that was where it was like, what does that do? You leave with more heat. You can win, what does that mean? You lose. So that was a real lesson learned, but here's one other thing I'll tell you about that match. This was the first time we'd ever been in the ring together. Ever. Ever.
Wow.
And here's my favorite part. I was buying under tights for those, used to wear like Speedos underneath, at Dick's Sporting Goods in Tampa. And I remember just sitting there looking for the right size, and I was like, holy oh my God, almost like, you don't put together a match, it's gifted to you by the energy of the universe, not to get too metaphysical. And I was like, I remember going to the cashier, and I said, do you have a pen and paper? And all she had was the back of the receipt. Can you print out like, and I remember just sit there and I went, write this. I wrote the whole finish of the match, like literally in 5 minutes in the middle of a sporting goods store, because it just hit me. Like, I remember Shawn said he wanted to do that finish because he saw it in an Owen Hart match. Let's work off that. And then I just had all this other shit. All right, so keep that in mind. We show up in Seattle for the rehearsal. Shawn's sitting there. And I said, hey dude, hey man, how's it going? Like, I got some ideas. Oh, so do I. Oh, cool. Well, I came up with the finish of the match. Shawn goes, seriously? He goes, I came up with the beginning of the match and nothing else. And I had nothing else either. So he took his ticket and put it next to my ticket and went over it, and we were done in 10 minutes. You know, those rehearsals go 10 minutes. Went back to the hotel. I guess we're done. And he's, I love all your combine the two. See you later, buddy. I'll see you tomorrow. That's how destined that match was to be.
That's amazing.
It's pretty crazy, right?
It's interesting. If you get a chance, go back on Peacock and watch this match, because in the beginning, y'all go out there after the entrances. He's in this corner, and he's just kind of real, Sean.
Yeah.
But you're over there, and you're psyching yourself up. That this is, it's you're both doing your thing, right?
Right.
So, but what was that energy you were channeling?
Well, you have to. This is when I first started interjecting my ideas for stories, and I remember I had an idea. What if? Because this whole thing started. We needed something. I think we were in Orlando. I was doing a highlight reel with Shawn Michaels. Something happened. It was just a random thing. Like, we did a segment, and Shawn ends up super kicking me at the end of the segment. And we walked through the curtain, and Vince is just sitting there staring at us. And he goes, "Do you smell that?" I said, "What? Do you smell it?" "I smell money." Shawn and Chris. Yes. That was the end of 2002. So then suddenly, could it be? Could I really have a WrestleMania match against Shawn? Like, Shawn was one of my 3 all-time heroes. Ricky Steamboat, Owen Hart, Shawn Michaels. Those are the guys I modeled my initial, career style. And I remember just waiting, things change. Like, please don't change this. Please don't change this. And about a month or 2 months before, I was like, we're going with Shawn versus Chris at WrestleMania. I was like, oh my gosh, this is like a dream. And the idea I came up with was a shoot. Shawn was my hero, a hero influence, whatever. It was almost like a kung fu master. And we had created a really cool story. So when we got into that ring, people wanted to see that match. And we gave them a match that they'll never forget. And to me, it was like, that's my favorite WrestleMania match by far, times a million.
Let's move forward.